Okay, so welcome to the JDC West 2022 marketing case presentation sponsored by the Associates. Thank you to our judges, Joash Thomas, Karen Ilchena, Ariel McGill, Genevieve Peugeot, and Jay Leslie. Competitors will have a maximum of 20 minutes to present. Immediately following the presentation, judges will have a total of 5 minutes to ask the presenters questions. Competitors, you will see Zoom chat notifications at various intervals to indicate the remaining time. Any speaker who continues to speak after the maximum time limit will be stopped. No questions or comments will be permitted from the audience. All judges are asked to have their microphones muted during the presentation. The audience is banned from any material or naming convention that bears the name or symbol of a competing university. We ask that the audience leave the Zoom call immediately following the presentation. Judges, please stay on this call until I advise you to move to the next call. And competitors, you may begin your presentation.
Good afternoon, Mary Brown's executives. My name is Kaylee, and I'm here with my associate Erin, and we are Two's Company Consulting, here today with you to crack in on the Gen Z market. Now, before we get started, I do want to say that both Erin and I are huge fans of Mary Brown's. However, I am a farmer's daughter, and I do have a bit of an emotional tie to Mary Brown's. There have been times in the past where Canadian meat has been undermined in the industry. And one of the things that we love the most about Mary Brown's is the fact that they are proud to be Canadian. And as for me, that's been passed down to me. So I want to make sure that the people that are more my age are getting the exposure to this incredible company for not only the fact that they use Canadian chicken and Canadian products, but for the fact that they are the future of what it means to be a Canadian company in the fried chicken quick service restaurant.
Great. So let's take a look at what we are bringing to you for a solution for the problems you're facing. So currently, you're in an extremely changing time in your industry. Right now, there is increasing competition coming in from the States. We're also seeing lots of changes in your industry related to the pandemic. And right now, it's absolutely crucial that you solidify your position in the Canadian market. And we're going to help you do this by targeting the most valuable consumer segment in this market, and that is the younger demographic, the Gen Zs. And we want to do this to help you attain greater Canadian market share in the face of increasing competition. So our goals for you today, firstly, we want to help you position to a younger audience as Canada's #1 fried chicken brand that comes first to mind when they think of fried chicken. Secondly, we're going to optimize your digital experience for your users, as this is a huge priority for your target market. The solution we're bringing for you today is going to be beyond your expectations. We're going to be helping you find the convergence between Gen Z humor and Canadian pride by acquiring a strategic partnership with Canadian icon Celine Dion. And this is going to help you promote your robust product line and your app. We're also going to help you increase app usage and functionality through a giveaway game in your mobile app. And this will ultimately thrust Mary Brown's into the target market's line of sight, making you the #1 fried chicken brand when they think of Canadian brands. So the impact today, we're going to help you create a 5-year net present value of $3 million with this project, looking at a 95% return on investment, as well as a 10% growth in your Canadian market share. So let's get into the meat and potatoes. What are the opportunities in your industry right now? We've seen a steady growth rate in the midst of the pandemic, especially with the takeout fried chicken market, which is expected to grow substantially in the next few years. And what we really want to highlight, though, is that the mobile app ordering segment is skyrocketing extremely fast and much greater than the industry as a whole. This means this is a huge opportunity for you to capitalize on, especially as it's a priority for your market. We know you already have an excellent app, and we're going to help you optimize that further. So of course, there are some challenges facing the industry right now. So let's look at where your wings are being clipped. Of course, we know that brick and mortar sales have been down as a result of the pandemic. And furthermore, that people are spending less on non-essentials. The main takeaway for you here is that you have to adapt for that mobile experience, and you need to position for greater Canadian market share to be front of mind for Canadians when they're thinking of spending their limited dollars. Let's look at your excellent strengths. We love what you're doing right now, and we really want to highlight this. You have several strengths that we just want to communicate to your consumer segment. So firstly, you have an excellent product of unprocessed comfort food. This is hugely preferred in the Canadian population. We also know that your product is craveable and delicious. This means that it's more about getting people in the door. Once they try your product, they're going to love it and be fans of Mary Brown's forever. But what we do really want to highlight here is that you have all Canadian chicken and other sourced foods. This sets you apart in an industry that is largely buying from the States. And Canadian pride is a huge priority, which is growing as a result of the pandemic. And so you really have a chance to capitalize on that. You also have a diverse product lineup. You have very unique snack offerings. This is something that's going to appeal really well to the younger generation and something to capitalize on as well. Of course, there are some opportunities for you to gain competitive advantage where you are missing out right now. So firstly, we noticed your ad campaigns. They are visually excellent, beautifully showcasing the product. However, we didn't find any differentiating features in your video ads, nothing that would set you apart. And this is really important in this day and age. We are constantly faced with several ads throughout our day, and it's important that your ad campaigns stand out. Which is what we're going to help you do today. Furthermore, your marketing communications are not currently encouraging mobile purchases. We really want to draw more people to the app. The app is your chance to have a captive audience of your consumer segment. You're going to have control over their notifications, and you're going to have more analytical information on who your customers are. So we really want to draw people to the app. And lastly, we saw that your Canadian supplier loyalty strategy is undefined, which is important as your competition is encroaching on the supply. And so we're going to help you sow the seeds to build that relationship for a more longer term future consideration down the line. So ultimately, we know that as ad saturation is increasing, your campaigns, in order to be effective, they have to be memorable and unique. And we're ultimately going to help you do that today by embracing humor.
So as you can see, we have a variety of different competition here, some of which are particular fried chicken quick service restaurants, others of which just dominate in the quick service restaurant in general. So as you can see, your two biggest competitors, which are Chick-fil-A and Popeyes, actually lie on the higher scale of more Canadian brand awareness. However, you do tend to have a little bit more Canadian market share than Chick-fil-A, not as much as Popeyes. So our goal for you as a Canadian fried chicken brand is to position you closer to A&W, closer to Tim Hortons as the Canadian fried chicken brand, as the thing that comes to mind when people think about buying fried chicken, and doing so in a way that captures what it means to be a Canadian that is looking for such a famous snack. Ultimately, we want Canadians to identify with you more so than any other quick service fried chicken restaurant. Let's talk about the consumer with the most potential. Surprise, surprise, it was the title. So Gen Z consuming class is something that we have labeled the ages of around 16 to 24, because this is the age group that's driving, that's starting to get their first disposable income. What's really interesting about this demographic is they are one of the first demographics that actually eats out for taste and convenience, whereas millennials, for example, may eat out more so for convenience. The most important part about this market is that tech is integral to their life and to their socialization. They prefer to order delivery, call ahead of time for pickup, or order via app. They may love their friends, but social interactions, especially during a time where we're under-socialized in a pandemic, become a little bit more difficult. These people are where you're going to find exactly what you're looking for in terms of a consumer market.
So our challenge that we've highlighted for you today, how can you attract that larger proportion of the Gen Z consuming class and take those and build loyal customers away from Popeyes and Chick-fil-A? And furthermore, how can this help you to obtain more market share? We looked at a few contenders for your situation that you're facing today, and we evaluated our alternatives based on 3 major criteria. Of course, we know it has to make money. Secondly, it has to capture your target market. This is really difficult with Gen Z, and what may have worked in the past will not work with Gen Z. So it has to be unique and different. And that leads us to our 3rd criteria. It must be a differentiator. We don't want you to be a fried chicken brand. We want you to be the fried chicken brand that every Canadian thinks of. And in order to do that, you have to be unique and you have to stand out. And so our first alternative that you were that you told us you were considering was automation in your stores. For example, self-serve kiosks. while we know that Gen Z does love technology and would feel comfortable in this, it's actually not a differentiator. We know that many of your competitors like McDonald's are already integrating this self-serve concept, and it's not actually necessary for your with your current budget. It's not worth the investment simply to enhance in-store experiences, as we know mobile ordering is becoming more and more relevant. Secondly, we looked at price optimization. This could be directing your price optimization towards lunchtime for your university or high school age market. We feel that while this market is motivated by price, this would not build a long-term brand awareness relationship with your target market. We really want to ensure that you're building a long-term relationship with this market. And so we don't believe that's a viable alternative. And lastly, we looked at enhancing your in-store experience. This could be moving towards more of a Chick-fil-A approach, which we know they are famous for their customer service. But what do we know about Gen Z? They actually love to not speak to people. They want to be on their phone. They want to order without having to interact, and they want it to be as efficient and quick as possible. So it actually is not relevant for your target market, and it's not worth your investment at this time. And that brings us to our recommendation, which is going to take your fried chicken beyond your expectations through a dynamic and humorous campaign, as well as accelerating your mobile app functions.
So let's break down our recommendation very quickly. So it's three-pronged, but it's also chronological, and we're going to dive way deeper into it. But I want to start off the first thing by mentioning that we are starting off with a promotional campaign called Beyond Your Greatest Expectations. The idea is to leverage the convergence of that Canadian pride by using an iconic Canadian legend like Celine Dion and Gen Z humor to capture your target market through social media and some TV ads. The second piece will be, well, once we have them on the app, how do we keep them there? We need to accelerate our app, we need to make it more robust, and we need to get people entertained by the idea of being on a restaurant app, right? The third piece will be a supplier relationship management. And this is more so outlining a competitive advantage that we're going to touch more on in our future considerations. So without further ado, judges, I need you to think for a moment about what it would be like to be scrolling on TikTok, or for someone that you know to be scrolling on TikTok, for the song It's All Coming Back to Me by Celine Dion to be blaring. In case you don't know, there's currently a trend on TikTok right now where people will lip sync oh so dramatically with a microphone, perhaps using a whisk or something, to this song. And so what we want to do is we want to have Celine Dion holding a chicken drumstick or holding a chicken sandwich, something 80s, something slow-mo, something corny, something hilarious that's going to use the likelihood of Celine Dion by using her song, It's All Coming Back to Me, When You Touch Me Like This, romanticizing the idea of Mary Brown's chicken, while also making sure to note the relevance that is the current trend of lip syncing to that song. And the final message that your consumers will be laid off, or that will be left off with, is that you can find all of this experience and more that exceeds beyond your expectations on the mobile app. There's so much there in terms of robust product offerings. We have a 50% off deal for you to get on that app, make that first in-app purchase, go pick it up and pay half of the price. It's exceeding beyond all of the expectations from multiple different facets. It's going to stick with the viewer because they'll hear the song, they'll think of the company, and they're going to think of this every time they even use the word beyond, which, as you may know, is a very common word in the meat industry right now. So we have them on the app, great. Now, how do we keep them there? This is going to be a type of idea that's similar to roll up the rim, but it's going to be for Mary Brown's. And we want to do this by sort of taking note of the way that Tim's was able to mobilize that experience of rolling up the rim on your phone. We want to do a similar thing with a very low level chicken crossing the road to get to Mary Brown's type of game. And so the whole reason why it's similar to roll up the rim is that once the chicken gets to the other side and gets to Mary Brown's, in there he might find free dill pickle chips. He might find a free chicken sandwich, or he might find something with as much value as up to a Cineplex ticket. So the whole point of this would be a little bit of a promotion that people can use when they decide, and only when they decide, to use the app to make a purchase. So as you can see, I've made a quick demonstration for you here on the side. And ultimately, it'll increase the time spent on the app. It's going to be totally unique, and it adds value to mobile order experience. Finally, this is the last thing where we talk about the supplier competitive advantage. So as we mentioned earlier, Mary Brown's is the only Canadian chicken brand that is really going hard with the fact that they are using Canadian chicken. So we want you to get a little bit prouder about it. Put it on your website. Start building those essential B2B relationships. It's a bit of a tricky situation because you're technically the consumer and they're technically the supplier, but we want there to become a type of loyalty there that's going to have them supplying you chicken and favoring you before other people decide to hop on the trend of wanting to sell Canadian chicken. Not to mention the Canadian chicken farmers are always looking for some positive advertisement and some, I guess, validation in the sense of what they're doing is fabulous for the Canadian economy. So a few future considerations. So this kind of builds on the last supplier differentiation strategy. The CFC Supply Chain Transparency Partnership would develop a way for people to actually see where the chicken they're eating comes from. And this is a future consideration because, of course, the Canadian chicken farmers would have to be on board with it. And because it's something that comes a little bit later down the line once you're making the type of revenue that our campaign is going to bring you. Finally, snack bars would be small kiosks in malls. As we mentioned earlier, there is a huge trend for students to be buying snacks, appetizers, those kind of things rather than large meals. And this would be the place to do it.
Fantastic. So we did make a few financial assumptions in determining your implementation strategy. I really just want to highlight two major costs that we've assumed here. So firstly, $200,000 are being attributed to the purchase of the song license, which we have determined through industry averages. As well, we have determined that a contract with Celine Dion would cost around $500,000. However, we believe if the cost were to go over this, it may not be financially viable to partner with Celine Dion in terms of her actual physical appearance being in our ads. So let's look at the implementation from a big picture. So we've divided your strategy into three major groups. Firstly, creating that campaign and distributing it. Secondly, the app upgrades. And lastly, supplier outreach. So the campaign is going to be the largest cost for you, looking at a timeline of 9 months to get to distributing with an investment of $710,000. And next, we have the app upgrades. This is going to take you approximately 6 months. It's extremely easy to develop a mini game these days. And so we have attributed a cost of $20,000, which we have also determined through industry averages. Lastly, supplier outreach is your lowest lift portion of this strategy. We're looking at 6 months as well as ongoing relationship management with a minimum cost of $2,000. Creating an impact overall for 5 years, $3 million with your NPV. And secondly, 10% growth in your market share in Canada. So a little bit more detailed implementation strategy. We're mostly looking at your actions are going to be taking place mostly in 2022 with ongoing maintenance in 2023. With the campaign creative, we need to develop that contract with Celine Dion, produce the ads, and then distribute through TV and social media. And with the app upgrades, we need to contract out a developer, develop that mini game, test in Q3 of this year, and moving on to app maintenance, as well as monitoring and optimizing the giveaway game usage to ensure you're not going overboard with your giveaways. And lastly, supplier outreach. This mainly involves email communications and developing that relationship in order to get the right information and permission to put to add an addition to your website about your suppliers. And lastly, in Q4 of this year, moving on to 2023, we really want you to focus on relationship management and building that loyalty. So quickly here, we've allocated most of your budget towards the Celine Dion contract, as well as the song license. Of course, you will be saving considerably if Celine Dion's contract does not go through, which we will address in our risks. So what is the actual financial impact here? Like we've already addressed, you're going to see major growth in the next 5 years with a 5-year NPV of $3 million. And lastly, a 95% gain on your investment, which is huge. And we really want to help you gain more revenue so that you can continue to expand.
So we've outlined a few risks for you today, the most important of which is, of course, using Celine Dion. So if she's unable to or too expensive to hire in the commercials, which we could consider to be a medium to high risk type of situation, we would recommend and mitigate the situation by only licensing the It's All Coming Back to Me Now song, because that's what people are going to be singing. It's gonna be what gets stuck in our heads. I know it's in mine and Erin's head. And you can physically move forward without her presence, but still kind of using that impact. A few other risks are just the overuse of the giveaway games, which Erin mentioned earlier, and chicken suppliers being unimpressed with parallel focus on promoting meatless chicken, which of course there's always promotional activities that you can use to sort of mitigate those types of things in the future. The key performance indicators are going to be $75,000 app downloads, 10% increased market share, and 700,000 new potential customers to Mary Brown's, all by Q1 of 2023, which is right on time for you. So finally, the most important things that we highlight today is how integral it is to position to the younger audience as Canada's fried chicken brand, and doing so by leveraging the trends that are currently rising around on social media and iconic Canadian legends. Finally, we mentioned how important it is to accept the fact that mobile is the future, and to optimize Mary Brown's digital experience by incentivizing people to get on the app and to stay on the app. Thank you so much for everything today. We hope today that you've learned to facilitate relationships and lasting impressions, starting tomorrow with lasting impact for Canadians across the whole nation.
All right, so now let's move on to the Q&A period.
Jay?
Yeah, that was awesome. Well done. Really well done. I guess my only question is, do either of you work in an agency world? Like, are either of you in the marketing agency world?
Yeah.
It shows. Yeah, it's very clearly shows. Well done.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. That's my only comment.
Joash?
Yeah, a great presentation. From a risk mitigation standpoint, curious to hear your logic or rationale behind investing heavily in one brand ambassador versus diversifying and having multiple ambassadors for, potentially a lower cost. Why this approach versus a more diversified approach?
So I can take that question. The reason why we wanted this is, think of this campaign as a starting point. You mentioned to us that you need results, and you need results fast. So this is going to be how you're going to get those that lasting impact with a certain amount of haste. So you're using a big figure, and who's to say that this campaign couldn't be continued on as trends change and as influencers change, micro-influencers of the sorts. And so this is just a point of you starting to really get your name out there as one of those funny brands that Gen Z loves so much, that's willing to make those big marketing decisions to stick in their customers' minds.
Erin?
Hi, thanks for the presentation. I'm also wondering about the risk of alienating the other demographics. I understand the urgency to increase awareness and get, as you just mentioned, but are we alienating some of the olders that have more disposable income that might be more profitable?
That's a great question. So that's what we love about picking an artist like Celine Dion. She's been an icon forever, and Canadians love her no matter what age they are. And so we really think she is an excellent way to bridge the gap between generations, so we don't feel that she will be alienating. Whereas had we picked somebody younger, perhaps like we've seen with the Tim Biebs campaign, that actually might be alienating more different age Canadians. And so that's why we love picking Celine Dion and really developing that Canadian pride.
Does anybody else have any questions? Oh, Karen again.
I'll do one more. So what would happen if Celine said no? I know you said that the music, we would still be able to use the music, but is there a plan B? Would there be somebody, another Canadian icon that you might have considered that would be an alternate?
Absolutely. So in the event that we weren't actually able to get Celine, the great thing about that song is because it's so trendy on TikTok right now, not just with her, but with other robust amount of influencers across Canada. So getting them to sing to their song and have some fun with it, and having that effect of like, oh hey, I know that person, I follow them on TikTok, I follow them on Instagram. That's kind of going to be the effect that would be left with if we aren't actually able to get Celine on. It's all about that connection piece and sort of relating back to the fact that we all like chicken, we all love Celine Dion.
Jade?
Jake?
Oh, you're muted.
Bravo. My kind of question actually dovetails with Karen's question. So in your slide, you had shown the licensing fee for the song alone, and then like obviously if that was the case, you're gonna have a lot more budget to play with. Did you have any thoughts around how you would reallocate that towards the app or towards the mini game or anything like that?
Absolutely. So one of the major opportunities that could be left if you had that extra 500,000 for not contracting with Celine Dion would be increased views. So really going big with your social media outreach and with your TV ads to get that maximum exposure and to make you on the same playing field as brands like McDonald's and Tim Hortons in Canada.
Cool, thanks.
Okay. I don't think we'll have time for another question. So we'll just wrap up the Q&A here and then. Thank you so much. And judges, when you're ready, you can move on to the next call.